How do you shrink it? Is any administration ever going to shrink it? I mean, the Republicans go, and I hate, like you, I hate using parties, but Republicans go in with the idea that, I'm not going to expand it.
And then they do.
Yeah, and they do.
Big time.
And Democrats go in with the idea, I'm happy to expand it, and they do really big time. So we're frustrated all along with Democrats or Republicans who govern like Democrats. But the point is, you got to shrink this thing. It's a bad thing. It was never intended to be this big. You know it, and I know it. So to what extent do you commit to reducing the relative size of the public sector relative to the overall economy? Now, you may have heard Dan Ubasella had suggested capping it at 20%. I think it's currently 26%. That would force it down considerably. And I know you pay as you go. I like the idea, but we got to spend a lot less, and that's one way to do it.
All right, look.
And I'll get off.
Okay. No, all right. You don't have to be a genius to look at the chart up here and the expansion in the size of the federal government to know it's not even our choice, folks, right? We shouldn't even be arguing about whether we are going to do it. We are going to do it. We're either going to come together and do it because we decided to do it, or we're going to do it because our creditors force us to do it. So it's going to happen either way. And the question is how. Look, cap it. It's awfully easy. Again, you've heard me say this a couple times tonight. It's easy to say, let's take government expenditures down from 24, wherever we are today, down to 20%, let's cap it. Now, I want you to think about this. If you constitutionally cap it, you heard David say this, and I want to ask you about this, but if you constitutionally cap it, what happens when we get into a World War II scenario, where the very survival of the Western world and us as a state? Do you make an exception for wars? And if so, where else do you make exceptions? Maybe the answer is no. My point is simply this. It's not hard. And you know what? I could get a big round of applause here tonight by saying, David Ubasella supports 20% caps on federal government. I support 19%. Baloney! That's not the hard part. The hard part is how do you go from 23 to 20? That's where the action is. And that's why we're having this discussion.
Understood. I absolutely agree with you. And good job.
Thank you.
I'm not a supporter. Good job.
Yes, sir.
Tom Bennett from Norwalk, Connecticut. Referencing the most recent DA vote on HR 1586, and basically the TAGO that we keep talking about. You want to talk about exactly, or mention just a few of the categories where the money came from, or do you want me to list them at the top of the
Sure, 1586 is the bill we voted on Tuesday, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so 1586.
26 billion, you just want to figure out
It's 26 billion in spending, 10 billion that goes to teachers, right? It's going to save 3,500 teacher jobs in the state of Connecticut, and 15
Your website says 1,500.
What's that?
Your website says 1,500.
What did I say?
3,500.
Oh, I'm sorry, I meant to say 1,500. It's 1,500 jobs, 1,500 teaching jobs here in the state of Connecticut, 160,000 nationally, I think. And it has $15 billion in it for sharing with states to try to alleviate some of the pressure that states are experiencing that is going to cause them to lay off firefighters and policemen. How was it paid for was your question. The two main paid-fors were in the stimulus bill, which some of the people in this room love so much, food stamps. The amount of food stamp expenditure was over a period of many years increased by $10 billion. We have taken away that stimulus-driven increase to the food stamp program. The other $16 billion, more or less, is largely coming from a foreign tax credit loophole, which, by the way, is part of the overall foreign tax in the U.S. and foreign tax structure that has given an incentive to our corporations to move taxes abroad. But those
how about the funding rescissions? Do you want to talk about those?
I'm sorry, which?
The funding rescissions.
Well, I gave you the two big areas that I think account for the bulk of the...
I don't know, I got a bunch here, like Defense Health Program, $27 million. I got a whole list here that total up to almost $15 million of just rescissions. So what you basically are saying is what you're doing is by, this is no disrespect to teachers, but what you're doing by swapping the money from one category to the other, you're cutting national defense, you're cutting the Park Service, you're cutting other areas of the country, where what you're really doing is you are basically supporting the teachers union, and you're cutting the funding of the military, the Park Service, the Department of Energy, nuclear energy, at $215 billion. So really talk about the decision.
You know what we did? That's fine. You know what we did? We did something very unusual for the United States Congress. We paid for some of our spending. And this, of course, is the reaction that we get. We paid for this thing. I wouldn't have voted for it if we hadn't paid for it. Now, look, you can tell me
right there. Read
Sir, I voted on it and I read it.
So you read the bill?
Here is my point. We had the courage to take some decisions to cut some programs so we didn't add the deficit, and now you're telling me, why did you cut these programs?
Military health programs.
My point is
For teachers. No disrespect.
Hey, look, let me tell you what. There's huge waste in defense. Military health care is out of control. I mean, huge waste in
Is the
defense.
Park Service out of control? Park Service?
The Park Service has got waste.
Department of
in it.
Energy?
Department of Energy's got huge waste in it. Okay? The fact of the matter is, pardon me? Listen, I spent 10 years on the front lines. I forgot more about where the waste is than most people do. All right? This is a bunch of hypocrisy, all right? The fact of the matter is, this government has grown too big. It's promised too much. It's going to have to basically fundamentally re-engineer itself for the 21st century. We're going to have to look at every major spending program, every major plan, every major tax plan, and redo it.
That's not the man to do it. Take the decisions right there. Take the decisions you have there
Yeah,
and
well,
don't get the
listen,
26
I'm
billion.
not an elected member of Congress. I'm just trying to tell you what the truth is. The fact is,
We send the
the
budget
fact
up.
that you end up cutting money in defense, you know, that's so $700 billion, what is it, 27 million?
Wherever the rescission is, cut it.
Yeah, cut it. You gotta cut it.
Just cut it.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were saying he did cut it.
No, the rescissions are there, but you just gave the money to somebody else. The cut isn't there.
Oh, I see.
Don't
So you reallocated funding is what your point is.
Teachers
Is that what your point is?
Basically, which I think would
So
happen.
you did the rescission, but you spent the money
Yeah,
someplace else.
that's correct. That's
So it's the same argument basically as
Yeah.
healthcare, we can save 500 million for Medicare, but we spend it someplace else.
Yeah.
That's a legitimate point.
I'm not saying there's any waste. There's not any waste in the
Oh,
military.
I understand what I just want to understand what you're saying. I'm going to give it back
You
to you.
rescinded the money, but you just
I
gave it to
understand
somebody
what
else.
you're saying. Well, okay, in fairness, I think what the congressman said, I'm not trying to defend his vote, okay, because I wouldn't necessarily vote the same way he did on some things. But the point is this. What he did say is he paid for it. You're debating about how he paid for it and maybe whether the bill should have been voted for to begin with. Reasonable people can differ on that. But it was paid for.
Nothing was paid for. It's a $1.4 trillion deficit. No.
All right.
It's not paid for. You cut here, that's zero. No, it's moving debt, moving
All
water.
right. Listen, we got to stay orderly here on the thing. Look, unfortunately, this is what happens in a highly politicized environment. You know, the money that is going to support teachers around this country, that the CBO says will save 160,000 teacher jobs, 1,500 here in the state of Connecticut. That's hard to oppose because a lot of us have kids in the school system, and you can do the math. If we don't do this, class sizes are 1, whatever, the 30s into the 40s. And you know what? When you can't think of anything else nasty to say about money that is going to go into the hands of teachers and preserving their jobs, keep them off the unemployment line, what we do in this hyper-politicized culture is we say, oh, well, we can't really criticize money going to teachers. So it's all about a sop to the teachers union, and that's just sad. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Congressman. My name is Monica May. I'm from Stanford, and I want to congratulate you on your ability to stay calm in these conversations.